opportunity, which is a rare one, to walk through a few stages of my life from the beginning. Some of you may have heard of some of the events, but I'm sure there are a few that you haven't heard of.
Uh-oh, we want them.
Okay, I came into this world on a farm that doesn't exist today in Damascus in 1923. Shortly thereafter, we moved, and we moved several times during the stages of us growing up. We lived in 8 or I think 9 different residences. That was a lot of moving, picking up, storing, putting everything back, going to different schools.
Before the house we knew, Dad? Before the house that we knew of?
You don't know of this one. This one was
what I'm saying.
gone
We moved all those
even
times.
when I was young.
All right.
It started. So we moved to what we call Razor Blade. That's where Gerald and Miriam lived. It's a little cluster there. It's a combination of black family houses, a black church, black cemetery, and the whole thing that we lived with. While there, when I was about age 4, I walked over with my father to see some spring chickens that a woman named Virgin, and I passed out there. The next thing I remember, I ended up in the Frederick Hospital with a heart condition. I can recall being x-rayed on a cold, like a metal slate at the time. And while there, I got homesick, and in the middle of the night, I crawled up out of a crib that had the sides up. I went down the hallway, and I saw in back of me the doors closed and the lights on. I went out on a 2nd-story battery deck, hollered for my mother and father to come in. Next thing I knew, that door flew open and the nurses came and grabbed me up and back.
How old were you?
Taylor's age, let's say.
4 years old.
And he remembers that.
So, following up with that, I had never been baptized. I can recall them calling in a preacher to baptize me in the neighborhoods there. I guess they thought I was going to be a goner. So I started taking Scotch emulsion, cod liver oil. I had all these things that I thought prescribed medicines. They were terrible. When I look back on it, I think they were a big assistant in my life. Built me back up. I started at school 1 year late. I started at the Claygettsville Elementary School, grades 1 through 6. I got a picture of that downstairs. And the teacher there was named Albert Warthen, and he was a strict one. If anyone got out of line, he had a rule, and he'd hear it whack on somebody's back, and they would scream, and everybody would get their attention. So we up and moved again, east of Damascus, and of course I had to change school, and school buses were just coming into that time. I was picked up at my Razor Blade home, delivered by a bus to a road that went into a Mount Lebanon school, another 6th grade school. The teacher was Willie Baker, and he was the milquetoast type. While there, the kids would tie him up in ropes, and they all let me out. No control on the complete opposite.
They tied up the teacher?
So, but when I got off the bus that first day, I got there, school had already opened. And I was shy, and I couldn't bring myself to go in and greet all these new students and teachers. And I stood out in an old deserted tobacco house where you could look through the cracks of the beams, and I watched them all come out to play every day, and I stayed in there. When the time they left in the evening, then I walked back to where I had my new home, where I had to live. So I ended up, I'll jump up, I went to Damascus High, and that, I got interested in a lot of subjects. I had a soccer team, we had a basketball team, and we had a baseball team. The remnants of the baseball team was put on a mural in the new library in Damascus a few years back. But we had a bunch of teachers there with odd names. There was Mr. Piles was the principal. There was a single lady teacher by Miss Cockburn. There was another one with a French name, Miss Pussytail.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What was that one? What was the last one?
Huh?
What was the last one you said?
Pussytail.
Oh, you got
T-A-I-R-E.
No, they can't have. Yeah, like all of them. That's awful.
names like that in New Hampshire.
I wasn't a very good student. We had another teacher named J. Willis Bagby, who was a real blue beard guy from Eastern Tennessee. And we would really get him going. He would throw chairs all over the place, anything but hit us to get his temper down. And he would call me in and he'd say, Robert, if you fail this test, you're going to stay back a year. I said, well, God, I'm doing. So I do enough work to get by. So I ended up with D on my scorecard. So I was in my 10th grade. I worked out all of my years, early teens, on my grandfather's farm every summer. We did the cutting of the wheat, the baling of it, the hay. They didn't have hay bales then. And I would go there and stay for the vacation days. I went barefoot all summer long. I'd stub my toes and different things. At the end of the farming season, when I went back to school, my mother, we got up a few dollars that we had. We'd go to Eisenhower's clothing store in Frederick, and she would do some wheeling dealing to get the clothes that we need, new sneakers and all for a new school year. So I went through all these areas. When I got to the 10th grade, I hired out at a Colesville nursery. I did digging up trees and shrubs and putting them out and doing that. And I was earning $21 a week. That was good pay for the time. When it comes to me school time, I gave my notice to quit to go back to school, and my mother didn't like it very much because I was helping to support the family. So I went back and I became the first high school graduate in my family. Buck and my sister Jen both had dropped out in earlier years. In fact, my older brother Buck had left home and gone to work full-time for my grandfather's home. So everyone following me up then had a high school grad. The first one to have a college grad was Shirley. She went to a teacher's college. Then when I graduated, my first year out of school, I went with a fellow student to Washington, D.C. and worked at the Union Station for the Washington Terminal Company that serviced all trains north and south from New York to Florida. I went while working in that capacity. The draft board caught up with me, and I beat the draft board to the punch and enlisted in the Coast Guard. I left in January of 42, and had my training at Manhattan Beach in New York City. It was supposed to be a 2 or 3 weeks period, but we had the flu in there, and then we couldn't move troops about. We stayed there for 3 months. So that daily treatment, some of which like Tom's getting now, we had on the canvas leggings. That's why I call it boot camp. So we got pretty sharp at Company 32 in there. We left there and came back to Curtis Bay, Baltimore. From there we made up our crew for an LST ship. I got photos of that downstairs. We took off by train to Pittsburgh and picked up our ship, which was commissioned. The mast was down on the ship because we had to go down the Ohio River under bridges. We went through several locks and ended up 3 days later in New Orleans. From there, the New Orleans shipyard put the mast back and painted camouflage colors on the LSTs. The ones that were camouflage blue were for the Atlantic fleet. The one with camouflage green went to the Pacific. From there then, I went into training, Mobile, Alabama, Panama City, Florida, Key West, Florida, up the East Coast to Norfolk, and what is it? The net. Well, anyway, for the next year, we were training Navy crews. Take one out for a week, going through all of our instructions on the ship. Go back and pick up another crew. We even came up to practice with pontoons off our side at Judith Point, Rhode Island. But anyway, came February of 44, I had to have my wisdom teeth all removed by a 3-stripe officer in Norfolk. The next day we set sail for overseas. So I wasn't feeling very good in the rough waters with 4
That's awful. Most people are up in bed, you know, that's...
We were loaded with 400 tons of ammunition. It was all in there on skids, 5 feet deep over the whole thing. This Bangalore torpedo, they call it. We set off a convoy of approximately 30 ships with destroyers and destroyer escorts guiding on all sides of us to board off submarine. It took us about 17 days zigzagging across the Atlantic Ocean. We got to the Straits of Gibraltar, we went through that, and about 2 days further into the Mediterranean, we were all alerted to, they set off the alarms of the ship, battle duty. You went outside the deck and it's 4 o'clock in the morning, it was lit up just like daylight with flares. German bombers from France, southern France, had come over us, and all of these 30 ships all had 20 and 40 millimeter guns on it, and every third bullet would be a tracer. So it was lit up like a fireworks that you never saw at fireworks today here. So I got a book written downstairs with all of these step procedures. We escaped that without any damage to our ship. If it had been any, we wouldn't have been able to pick up a piece of it. We unloaded at Bizerte Harbor, Tunisia. This is right after we had captured Sicily, and the Angel beachhead had been gone in a month before. So we unloaded our ammunition. A couple of days later, we moved back out, ship into Oran, Algeria. If I'm burdening you with too much detail,
No, we love it.
we picked up a whole contingent of Free French forces with their guns and vehicles. But that was, we were taking them back to England so they could come in on the invasion.
I'll be two baby, you be one baby.
Again, it took 17 days to come from the Straits of Gibraltar to England because we had to go out almost mid-Atlantic back to England because of the submarine bases along the coast of France. So then a few days later, we pulled into Cardiff, Wales. We stayed there and had supplies come on board and deport all the Free French forces. And from that point on, from last of April to May, we worked around the coast of England, Cornwall, all along the cities and towns along the southern coast. This was preparation to get ready for the invasion. On about June 4th, we loaded up a contingent of the 29th Division, which was trucks with pulling about a 37mm gun behind it. Each truck had about 13 men on it. They were loaded with ammunition and gasoline. We couldn't, the first day of the invasion, we went to the Omaha Beach. That was the main one with the cliff up and back. We couldn't, with our equipment, there were too many barriers that had to be destroyed before we could land. We finally pulled anchor and went ashore, unloading this division when, I won't describe all the details of it. One of the first trucks off, either broke an axle or something in the truck and they couldn't move. The next one off went around it and hit a landmine, and that was our first big conflagration.
That was off that LST boat, right there? That was off that LST boat?
It just came off valves.
Yep.
So, anyway, without going into more detail of that, we finally got unloaded. We took some injured people from that group back aboard. We immediately were converted into a hospital ship because at that stage, there were no field hospitals on the beach. Already there had been all kinds of injuries. We completely filled the floor of that tank deck with people on stretchers. We had a Navy team come aboard who performed operations on a makeshift basis all night long back to England. Out of that, over 100 seriously injured people, they only lost 3 on the trip back to England. I thought that was great workmanship with the Navy doctor. I'll kind of speed it up now a little bit. We went back and forth overall 66 round trips over the next year, back and forth from England to France. we would hold troops, things one way, we would hold German prisoners back to England that were captured.
Really?
In the latter part of the war, when we started to move inland toward Germany, we would carry back to England whole groups of Polish families that had been incarcerated for the war. Once Patton and the U.S. forces moved across France, we then started to go up the River Seine with loads so we could unload near the backs of where the fighting forces. We made 2 trips into Rouen, R-U-E-N.
How do you remember all this?
I
know,
It's
it's amazing, Bob, your memory.
That was the city where Joan of Arc was burned at the stake in the 1400s. I also find recently that the name Duval that came to America in the mid-1600s originated from the city of Rouen.
Oh,
So,
that's pretty cool.
when the port of Cherbourg had opened up, then troops from the States and all had embarked into that port. They welded railroad tracks on our deck of our plane. We hauled railroad cars across. I got pictures of those downstairs that we were unloading. We did that for several weeks, and then when the war got ended in Europe in June of what, 40?
45.
No, 40. Yeah, 47. When
You were born at 47.
Yeah.
You were born at 47. Pam was born
Would've been 40
well, at the end of the war in Europe, then we
in 1945.
45.
Let's fast forward
Yes,
and
40
good back.
we were given a special trip to carry a big metal safe. It was rumored to be about $500,000 in it, providing pay for people who were going into Norway to be the rescue forces there. And that was a beautiful ride up that fjords, up about 50 miles of
broken into that
fjords,
truck.
where the water's deep blue water. So after that, we come back to the States.
All right, Dad, hold on, I'm gonna get a drink.
Yeah.
We ended the war, wait, we're gonna get a drink.
Intermission.
I could kill this
Do you want my baby shower?
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't.